I didn't plan on writing any of this down. Paper is a luxury now, but I've got spiral notebooks stacked in a rubber tote because I always thought society might collapse one day. Funny how you prep for years thinking it'll be nukes, blackouts, and then it's the dead climbing out of hospitals and biting through people's throats. The first reports came in early this morning. Local AM radio out of Columbus said there were disturbances downtown. Some DJ was laughing it off, calling it another bath salts incident. I knew better. When cops start using words like disturbance and multiple casualties in the same sentence, you read between the lines. I made coffee black and sat by the Baofeng radio I keep clipped to the kitchen cabinet. Static. Bits of chatter from county sheriffs in Licking and Franklin counties, voices sharp, too sharp for routine calls. At 9:47 a.m., Twitter exploded. Videos from downtown Columbus. People screaming. Someone filming from inside a Coda bus caught a man throwing himself against the glass, his jaw red, dripping. He broke through, pulled a woman out before the driver floored it. That was the moment I stopped thinking this was drugs. I locked the back door, pulled the Beretta from the nightstand and set it on the counter next to my coffee. My heart wasn't pounding yet, but it knew which direction to go. Around noon, I checked the interstates on Google Maps. I-70 westbound, solid red. Same with I-71 south. People were already fleeing, though none of them knew where to. That's the herd mentality, and it kills faster than bullets. I'd been preaching for years, don't get stuck on the interstates when SHTF. Today proved me right. I didn't run. I inventoried. Pantry, 19 buckets of rice and beans sealed in Mylar. 46 cans of soup. 12 jugs of peanut butter. Enough multivitamins for 2 years. Basement, 300 gallons of water in blue barrels, stabilized with bleach. 6 cases of bottled water. Berkey filter assembled. Garage, Honda generator topped off, 2 propane tanks, 15 gallons gasoline treated with stable. Solar panels still boxed from last spring. Weapons, Beretta 9mm, 5 mags, 600 rounds, Mossberg 500 shotgun, 200 shells mixed birdshot and slugs, AR-15, 12 mags, 1,200 rounds, Ruger 10-22 with a brick of .22 LR, 1 machete, 2 hatchets and my grandfather's K-bar. Most people today went to Walmart for toilet paper. I walked through my house and knew I'd outlive them. At 3:22 p.m., the power flickered. Just for a second, but it was enough. The grid is a fragile thing. Once it hiccups, you can bet it's circling the drain. I shut down the desktop, unplugged the chest freezer, and switched the fridge to generator backup. Outside, the neighbors were restless. The Johnsons across the road were loading their minivan like they were going on vacation. Clothes, coolers, even the damn dog crate tied to the roof rack. They waved to me, asked if I wanted to caravan. I lied and said I was waiting for my brother to come get me. They smiled, nodded, drove off toward the interstate like lambs to slaughter. By 5 p.m., gunshots cracked from the direction of Lancaster. Distant, muffled, carried on the humid air. Then sirens. Then nothing. I sat on the porch with the AR across my lap, scope fixed down the gravel road. Dusk settled. Crickets buzzed. For a while, I almost convinced myself the world was normal. Then I saw it. At 7:41 p.m., something staggered down the far end of the road. Human-shaped, jerky in its movements like it had forgotten how to walk. My first thought was drunk. But when the figure reached the light of the lone street lamp, I saw the face. Slack. Gray. The shirt stained dark with something that had soaked deep. It stopped, sniffed the air, then turned toward a barking dog. The motion was wrong, too fast, a whip-crack shift from limp to lunge. The dog yelped once. Silence after that. I watched through the scope. My finger brushed the trigger. I didn't fire. Not yet. Conserving ammo is rule number 1. Observing is rule number 2. At 8:06 p.m. I wrote this, Day 1. The world has ended and almost no one realizes it yet. 8:30 p.m. The Wilsons came knocking. Husband, wife, 2 kids. They looked like they'd just run a marathon, sweating, pale, eyes darting around like prey animals. "Do you have food? Do you have water?" the wife asked before I could even speak. Of course I had food and water. But you don't tell desperate people that, not when you've seen the way desperation mutates into violence. I kept the screen door between us and said the line I'd practiced in my head for years: "I don't have enough for my own family." The husband pressed his palm against the mesh. "We just need a few bottles. Just enough to get through the night." Behind him, the little boy was crying. The little girl clutched a stuffed rabbit like it was a life raft. That almost broke me. Almost. I shook my head, said I was sorry, closed the door. They didn't argue, didn't scream. Just walked away back across the yard, back into their house with the porch light burning like a beacon. I knew what that meant. Lights, noise, panic, all of it might as well be blood in the water. 9:12 p.m. The power went out. Whole street, whole county for all I knew. The dark came fast, pressing against the windows. I lit one kerosene lamp in the kitchen, wrapped foil around the glass so it only shone inward. Then I did a sweep. Front door locked, back door barricaded with a bookcase, basement bulkhead secured with 2x4s. Windows on the first floor boarded from the inside. Upstairs windows taped with blackout plastic. Every screw I'd driven, every board I'd nailed over the last 3 years finally justified itself. Outside, the Wilsons' porch lights still burned. They must have had a generator. I wanted to scream at them to shut it down. Instead, I watched. At 10:02 p.m., the first scream came from their house. It started high, sharp. The sound of a mother realizing her kids were dying. Then the deeper shouts of the father. Then banging, splintering wood, the kind of noise a door makes when it stops being a door. I sat at my upstairs window, AR balanced on the sill. Night vision scope glowing faint green. Shapes moved fast on their lawn. 3, maybe 4 of them. Too quick for drunks, too mindless for looters. One vaulted onto the hood of their minivan like it was nothing. Another slammed against the siding again and again until something gave way. The screaming cut off at 10:17. The generator kept running. 11:45 p.m. They came down the road. I counted 5 now. Shambling but not slow. Drifting toward sound, toward light. The Wilsons' generator was still chugging, and the zombies circled the house like moths around a flame. One broke off. Stumbled my way. I held my breath. Through the scope I saw her face. Half-torn, jaw slack, one eye white and milky. She turned her head toward my house, nostrils flaring. For a second I thought she saw me. Then a branch snapped in the woods behind her, and she lurched that direction, vanishing into the dark. I didn't pull the trigger. I wanted to. My hands ached from wanting to. But every shot is a beacon. Noise is death. So I waited. 12:30 a.m. The night stretched longer than any I'd ever known. I sat in silence, watching shadows, counting my breaths. Down the road, the Wilsons' generator sputtered and died. The dark swallowed everything. The moaning carried a while longer, then faded. I don't know if the Wilsons made it. Deep down, I know the truth. Day 1 ends with 5 dead in Lancaster, probably more in Columbus, and a family across the street gone before midnight. Tomorrow, I'll wake up in a world I barely recognize. I woke up to silence. Not the good kind, not the kind that comes after a snowstorm when the world feels padded and safe. The silence was wrong. Heavy. Like the air itself was holding its breath. Then the cracks came, not thunder, not fireworks. Gunshots. Far off toward Lancaster. Short bursts at first, then a long roll of fire like someone emptied a mag. Then nothing again. I sat up on the cot I dragged into the basement. No windows down there, no moonlight, just concrete walls and the low hum of the generator. I let it run through the night on economy mode, just enough to keep the freezer alive. I didn't risk lights. Climbed upstairs, careful, slow, Beretta in hand. The house smelled of kerosene and sweat. Every creak of the floorboards made me wince, though no one alive would hear it. The Bauphone radio spat static on the counter. I turned the dial, cycling through frequencies. At 7:12 a.m., a voice bled through. A sheriff, Franklin County maybe. Mass casualties, requesting backup at perimeter breached. They're not, oh God, they're not staying down. Then nothing but static. I shut it off. Sat with my coffee substitute, chicory root I'd vacuum sealed 2 years back. I never thought I'd miss Folgers this much. I told myself I'd stay another day. Going out there now would be suicide. I had enough here. Food, water, ammo, air filtration if it came to that. Staying put was survival. By late morning, the neighbors were restless again. The Wilsons' house was dark. No movement, no sound, just silence, a silence thick enough I could almost see it. The Jenkins family 2 doors down piled their SUV with boxes, bags, toys, even a mattress bungee corded to the roof. They were screaming at each other the whole time. The husband wanted to leave. The wife wanted to wait. Their teenage son just stared at the ground like he already knew they wouldn't make it. Around noon, someone knocked at my door. 3 raps, shaky. I peered through the upstairs peephole. It was Mrs. Carter from the corner lot. 65, widowed, frail. She clutched an empty gallon milk jug like it was a ticket out of hell. I just need a little water, she whispered, eyes darting around. Please. Just 1 jug. I'll pay you. I have cash. The paper no one would wipe their ass with by next week. I tightened my grip on the doorframe. My throat ached to say yes. To be human. But the truth is, every jug I gave away meant less for me. Less for survival. I'm sorry, I said through the wood. I don't have any to spare. I don't know if she believed me. She just nodded, lips trembling, and shuffled back toward her dying house. I hated myself for it, but I locked the door anyway. Afternoon heat rolled in. The kind that makes Ohio air thick as soup. Without power, the neighborhood grew loud, voices carrying, arguments rising, dogs barking without pause. Every sound was a beacon. At 3:40 p.m., I heard glass break down by the BP gas station near Route 22. More shouts, then the sound of a shotgun blast. A few minutes later, 2 more. I climbed to the attic, pulled the blinds just enough to see. Smoke was rising behind the treeline, faint but real. And moving through the brush on the far edge of my property, 10 of them. Maybe more. Zombies if that's what they are. They weren't shambling now. They moved with purpose, though not intelligence. Drawn to the noise, the shouting, the sound of breaking glass. I watched them through the AR scope, counted each pale face, each jerky lunge forward. The group stuck close like geese flying blind. Every time a branch snapped, they all turned in unison, heads twitching, mouths hanging open. I wrote it down, they hunt by sound. Not by smell. Not by sight. By sound. The knowledge felt like stolen fire. At 5:12 p.m., one broke off. I didn't see where it came from. One moment the yard was empty. The next, there it was, limping across the gravel drive, dragging one leg stiff as a board. It came straight toward my house. My pulse roared in my ears. I crouched low, silent. The thing paused at the base of the porch, head twitching. Then it made a sound, a wet, choking moan, guttural and raw. I couldn't risk a gunshot. Couldn't. So I went quiet as a shadow, slipped out the back door with the machete in hand. The grip was slick from sweat. The thing was smaller than I thought. A teenage boy, maybe. Clothes shredded, one sneaker half gone. His jaw worked side to side like something unhinged. His eyes were cloudy, marbled white. I stepped behind him, raised the blade, and brought it down hard into the base of his skull. The sound was worse than I imagined. A crunch, a wet crack, and then dead weight sagging against me. I had to kick him off the blade. I dragged the body to the barn, covered it with a tarp. My stomach turned, but I forced myself to study it. Skin pale, clammy. Muscles locked tight like rigor mortis, yet it still moved. The bite marks on his arm were deep, jagged, human-sized. Infection confirmed. I wanted to puke. Instead, I washed the machete in bleach and logged every detail in this journal. Night came too fast. The neighborhood was silent again except for the crickets. No more cars leaving. No more arguments. Just houses dark and hollow, waiting for what came next. I sat with the AR across my lap, watching the tree line, listening to every groan of the wood, every rustle of leaves. I wrote this at midnight. The world is different tonight. Yesterday it ended. Today it began to rot. 12:15 a.m. The generator across the street finally went quiet. I don't know if they ran out of fuel or if someone cut it off. Either way, silence fell like a curtain. The crickets carried on, oblivious. The frogs by the creek sang like nothing had changed. But I knew better. Silence in a neighborhood full of panicked people doesn't last unless those people are gone. I sat upstairs in the dark, watching through the green glow of the scope. Every shadow looked wrong. Every rustle made my hand tighten on the AR. At 1:04 a.m. I saw movement. Two figures slipped between the Jenkins SUV and the front porch. Not shambling, not lurching. Humans. Looters. One carried a crowbar, the other a pistol. They moved quick, prying the door, shoving inside. I couldn't hear the family. Couldn't see them. Just shadows against shadows. Then a muffled scream. I stayed still. Stayed quiet. The looters came back out 5 minutes later, dragging a black garbage bag that clinked like bottles. They walked down the street laughing. I wanted to shoot them more than I wanted to breathe, but noise draws them in, and I couldn't risk it, so I let them go. 3:42 a.m. First real horde. Not massive, not like the movies. Maybe 20, but 20 is enough. They came from the east, from the direction of town, moving in a loose wave, spreading out across lawns. The sound of the looters must have pulled them in. They hit the Jenkins house first. Banging, clawing, moaning. The door was already cracked from the crowbar. It gave fast. The screams lasted longer this time. I watched through the scope. One by one, the family was dragged out. The teenage son tried to run. He didn't make it past the mailbox. I wanted to look away. I forced myself not to. Information is survival. Emotions are death. By 4:10, the house was quiet. The horde drifted, some peeling off, others circling aimlessly. A few stayed, gnawing at whatever was left. I wrote it down. Noise brings them. Numbers grow fast. If 20 can appear in an hour, 200 can appear in a day. Dawn came gray and wet. Clouds heavy, the smell of rain sharp in the air. I went out to the barn with gloves and bleach. The body was still there, stiff now, pale as chalk. No rot yet. That scared me more than anything. Death without decay. I studied it again, forcing myself to memorize every detail. Bite marks. Cloudy eyes. Nails cracked and torn like it had clawed its way out of something. Maybe a hospital bed. Maybe a grave. I dug a pit behind the barn, 3 feet deep. Rolled the body in, covered it with lime from a sealed bag I kept for compost. Buried it. Marked the grave, logged the location, move on. By afternoon, the rain came hard. Sheets of it, pounding the roof, masking every sound. For the first time since it started, I felt almost safe. Rain hides noise. Rain hides movement. But it also hides them. At 2:17 p.m., a shape appeared at the tree line. Then another. Then 5 more. The rain blurred them into shadows, jerking, twitching, lurching closer. They didn't come all the way in. Just hovered near the edge of the yard, swaying, heads cocked like they were listening. I stayed inside. Stayed low. AR loaded, finger ready. I didn't breathe until they drifted back into the woods. Evening brought more knocks. Not on my door this time. On others. Survivors maybe searching. Or scavengers testing locks. Every noise echoed in my skull. Every slam, every muffled voice, every splash of rain on the pavement. The neighborhood is dying piece by piece. And I am the vulture perched on what's left, waiting. Midnight. The rain stopped. The silence came back. I sat with the lantern turned low, writing by hand. My muscles ache, my eyes burn, but I can't stop. Every detail matters. Every note might mean the difference between surviving another night or ending up like the Wilsons. Here's what I know after 2 days. They hunt sound. Gunshots, screams, engines, generators, all of it pulls them like moths. They don't rot. Not yet. Maybe not at all. That's worse than death. That's permanence. Noise brings numbers. 20 tonight. Tomorrow maybe more. This will grow exponential. Humans are worse. Desperate, armed, stupid. They'll kill you faster than the dead will. Day 2 ends with the neighborhood broken, families gone, and me alive only because I stayed quiet. I don't know how long silence will save me, but it's the only weapon I have that doesn't run out. I woke up before dawn to the smell of kerosene. The lamp had burned all night, faint but steady, and the fumes clung to everything. My head throbbed. My tongue felt like cotton. I checked supplies again, not because I had to, but because routine keeps me sane. Food buckets stacked neat in the pantry. Water barrels steady in the basement. Ammo cans labeled and sealed. Enough to last a year if I ration. Maybe longer. But kerosene is low. Coffee substitute nearly gone. And I've only got 6 propane canisters left for the grill. Small things, but small things add up. The Baofeng radio spat static, then nothing. I cycled channels for half an hour. Finally caught half a transmission. Quarantine, breached, highway, not safe. Then silence. If the quarantine's broken, there's no cavalry coming. No FEMA trucks, no Red Cross shelters. Just me and what I've got here. By 9 a.m. I made the decision. Stupid maybe. Dangerous definitely. But necessary. I'd been planning for this moment for years. You don't stockpile forever without knowing one day you'll have to risk topping off. Rule of threes. 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. I had those covered. But fuel, medicine, and extras? That was the weak link. So I loaded my pack. Machete strapped to the side. Beretta on the hip. AR in the passenger seat. Gloves, bleach, duct tape, lockpicks, 2 contractor bags folded flat. A handwritten list. Batteries, AA, AAA. Bleach, kerosene. Propane canisters. Powdered milk. Canned meat, tuna, chicken, Spam. Ibuprofen, antibiotics if any left. I told myself it would be quick. In and out. Back before dark. The roads were worse than I expected. I took the back route toward Lancaster, avoiding the main drag. Every intersection was clogged with abandoned cars, doors hanging open, glass glittering on the asphalt. Some had bodies still inside, slumped over steering wheels, necks torn raw. I skirted around them, engine idling low. Windows cracked just enough to hear the world breathing. At one ramp to I-70 I stopped cold. A dozen vehicles piled like a scrapyard, crushed against the guardrails. Smoke stains licked the concrete, and scattered among the wrecks, half-burnt uniforms. Military. They tried to hold the line here, and failed. I didn't linger. The Dollar General on the edge of town was the first target. Small, tucked off the road, easy to defend. The parking lot was half full of abandoned cars, some with doors wide open. A shopping cart lay tipped on its side, a smear of dried blood across the handle. I killed the engine, coasted in neutral the last few feet, parked behind the dumpster. Backpack on, machete ready. The front windows were shattered. Inside was dark, quiet. Too quiet. I stepped in slow, boots crunching glass. The smell hit first. Copper, sweat, rot. Shelves were half stripped. Chips, beer, soda, gone. Cigarettes cleaned out. But further back, canned goods still sat heavy on the racks. No one loot Spam on day 1. I filled 1 bag with cans, powdered milk, bleach, and 3 bottles of ibuprofen. Found 2 propane canisters rolling under a shelf. Jackpot. Then I saw it. A bloody handprint smeared across the freezer door. Fresh. Movement in the back. A sound like wet feet slapping linoleum. I froze, pressed against the aisle. Slowly peeked around. Was there a man, or what used to be one? Clothes torn, stomach gaping open, ribs shining slick. He staggered against the freezer, head jerking. His mouth worked like a broken hinge, teeth clicking. He hadn't seen me. Not yet. I gripped the machete, forced my breath shallow. Waited for him to lurch closer, then stepped fast, swung hard. The blade caught at the base of the skull. Crunch. He dropped like a sack of meat. Blood sprayed warm across my sleeve. I almost gagged, but I held it together. Wiped the blade clean on his shirt. Moved quick. Filled the second bag with whatever I could grab. Batteries, ramen, first aid kit stripped bare, but one roll of gauze left. I was almost out the door when I heard it. Voices. Human. 2 men arguing. Coming from the front. Told you there'd be something left. Keep your damn voice down. Looters. Armed, probably desperate. I ducked behind the end cap, crouched low. My heart thudded so loud I swore they'd hear it. Their boots crunched glass, closer, closer. One of them muttered, "Check the back." I tightened my grip on the machete, every muscle screaming to swing first. But no, shooting, fighting, it would bring more. Always more. So I waited. They passed, their shadows stretching across the aisle. One carried a shotgun, the other a crowbar. They didn't see me. When their backs were turned, I slid out the door, low and fast, bags heavy on my shoulders. By the time they realized anyone had been there, I was already in the driver's seat, engine rolling, coasting away in neutral until the road curved. Only then did I breathe. I made it home before dusk. Poured bleach over the machete, stripped my sleeves, burned them in a barrel out back. The haul was worth it. Enough supplies to stretch weeks longer. Enough to make the risk feel almost smart. But the image of that looter with the shotgun sticks in my mind. Humans are worse than the dead. Always will be. Dusk settled as I backed the truck into the barn, headlights off, tailgate low. Every sound felt twice as loud in the stillness. The bags scraped, cans clinked, and each noise made me wince. I unloaded in silence, stacking new supplies on the workbench. Cans first, bleach next, propane canisters last. My hands shook the whole time. Not from fear of zombies, not anymore, but from the memory of those looters. The dead are predictable. They come at you fast or they don't come at all. The living? The living weigh their options. The living wait until your back's turned. I barred the barn door, walked back to the house through the dark. Every step I swore someone was watching. Inside, I did another inventory. Not because I needed to, because it's the only thing that calms me. Cans stacked, organized by type. 2 fresh bottles of bleach sealed tight. Propane lined along the wall like soldiers. On paper, today was a victory. I came back alive, heavier with supplies, no bullets wasted. That's what I should focus on. But then I noticed the footprints. Wet, muddy, not mine. Right outside the kitchen door. I froze, AR raised. Listened. Waited. Nothing but the tick of the kerosene lamp. I checked every window, every corner, every closet. Nothing. Whoever it was, they hadn't forced their way in. Maybe they circled. Maybe they watched. Or maybe they're still out there waiting. Later, I sat upstairs with the scope pointed toward the tree line. That's when I noticed it. The infected I'd seen earlier, the horde of 20 near the Jenkins house. They hadn't moved on. Not completely. At least 6 still lingered near the wreckage. Just stood there. Swaying. Twitching. Like they were waiting for something to happen again. Every so often one would wander, sniff the air, then stumble back to the same spot. I wrote it down. They don't just follow noise. They stay near it. Like dogs circling a scent. They linger where blood was spilled. That means danger zones don't reset. A gunfight today is a feeding ground tomorrow. Which means the store I just hit is already lost. Anyone going back will find more than broken glass. By midnight, the rain returned. A slow drizzle, tapping soft against the roof. It should have calmed me. Instead, it masked sounds I needed to hear. I paced the rooms in darkness, machete on my hip, AR slung across my back. My nerves were raw. Every drip sounded like footsteps. When I finally sat, I couldn't write fast enough. Here's what I logged tonight. Supply runs are suicide missions. Even small stores draw looters and infected. Both are fatal. The dead linger. They don't move on. They haunt places where sound and blood happened, maybe for days. Humans are predators now. They'll scavenge until nothing's left, then turn on each other. The irony? I risked everything for powdered milk and kerosene. But that's how survival works. You bleed for the little things. Before I closed the book, I wrote this. Day 3 ends with a full pantry, a heavier conscience, and a reminder carved into my bones. The dead are patient. But hunger is worse. I woke late today. That almost never happens. For years, I trained myself to wake with the sun. I told myself if society ever failed, my life would depend on that habit. But last night I barely slept, and when I finally did, it was like my body shut down completely. I dreamed of voices in the woods. I dreamed of that looter with the shotgun. I dreamed of silence, thick enough to choke on. When I opened my eyes, it was nearly 10. Too late. Too vulnerable. The bow phone was nothing but static. Not a word. Not a fragment of a word. Just the hiss of an empty world. Yesterday I caught chatter. Broken, garbled, but real. It meant someone was out there. Today? Nothing. I cycled through every channel. Police bands. Ham bands. Military. Weather service. Dead air across all of them. I shut it off and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the lamp. It's not the dead that scare me anymore. It's the silence. Around noon I forced myself up. Couldn't let lethargy sink its claws in. That's how people lose. Clouds rolled heavy across the sky, thick and gray, no sun breaking through. The whole world looked drained, like someone had turned the saturation down. No birds. No planes. No cars on distant highways. A dead world. I walked the property, AR slung, machete at my side. The air smelled wet, metallic, like old blood. That's when I saw it. The fence post along the west line had been knocked flat. Not just weather, snapped clean like something heavy pushed it down. And in the mud near it, boot prints. Not mine. I crouched low, ran a gloved finger along one. Still crisp. Less than a day old. Someone was here. Back inside, I dragged more boards to the windows. Hammered slow, steady, wrapping each seam in black plastic to kill the glow of lanterns. Reinforced the back door with a second bar. Every strike of the hammer echoed through my bones. Every thud felt like it carried for miles. When I stopped, sweat dripped cold down my back. My hands shook. Not from work. From the thought of who might have been out there last night while I slept. In the afternoon, I tried an experiment. I carried a metal pipe into the barn. Waited until the woods felt still, then banged it against the wall. Once. Twice. The sound echoed like thunder, rolled out into the trees. I ducked behind hay bales and waited. At first, nothing. Just drizzle pattering against the tin roof. Then movement. One came from the south tree line, stumbling fast. Another from the gravel road, head jerking side to side. Within 15 minutes, 2 infected were circling the barn. Clumsy, sniffing, pawing at the walls. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. They stayed nearly an hour. Then drifted off one at a time back the way they came. It confirmed what I already feared. Sound doesn't just bring them. It roots them to the spot. They'll linger waiting for more. Noise is death. At dusk they came again. I counted 5 this time. They weren't pulled by noise. They just came. Right up to the barricades. One pressed its face against the glassless window, smearing gray spit across the boards. Another pawed at the front steps, nails ripping wood. They circled like vultures. Like they were testing me. I stayed still. AR raised, finger on the trigger, but I didn't fire. Couldn't risk the sound. Minutes stretched into an hour. My arms ached. My breath burned in my chest. Finally, they wandered off, swaying back into the dark. I didn't lower the rifle until the last one was gone. Now it's night again. Rain on the roof, steady, endless. The house feels smaller than it did yesterday. I think I hear voices, carried faint on the wind. could be real, could be imagination. I don't know which is worse. I'll write this last part clear so if anyone finds this, they'll understand. The world doesn't end with bombs or fire. It doesn't end with screams or chaos. It ends with silence. And silence is louder than screams. The rain kept falling. Midnight now, maybe later. I don't trust the clock anymore. I've blacked out every window, but when the lightning flashes, I still see shapes in the glass. Figures that aren't there when the dark returns. Maybe my mind, maybe not. I walk the rooms in silence, barefoot, rifle slung tight. Each creak of the old wood feels like a gunshot. I freeze every time listening. Nothing answers back. But silence doesn't comfort me anymore. It taunts me. I set up at the upstairs window with the scope. From here I can see the tree line, the barn, the long gravel drive. I should feel safer watching. I don't. Because I swear something out there is watching back. The scope fogged with my breath, and in the glass I caught a flash. Movement too quick to pin down. Maybe it was just a branch. Maybe a deer. But when I lowered the rifle, I could still feel it. That weight in the dark. The dead don't watch. They move. They stumble. They sniff. This was different. I left the upstairs window and did another sweep. Basement first. Checked the water barrels, the emergency candles, the sealed buckets. All untouched. Then the kitchen. Everything still stacked, still silent. Except for the door. The back door rattled in its frame. Not hard. Not steady. Just once. A single tap. I froze, hand on the knob of my machete. Listen. The rain filled the silence. Then another tap. I backed away slow, rifle raised. Waited. Nothing followed. When I finally checked, the door was still locked. Bar still in place. But muddy streaks smeared the wood. Finger length. Too high to be animal. Someone tested it. Or something. The night dragged. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, journal on my lap, AR across my knees, listening to the rain. Around 3 a.m. I heard dogs. Faint, carried on the wind. They barked sharp, frantic. Then they yelped, high and awful. Then silence. No more barking since. It reminded me of something I read once. When Rome fell, wolves came back within a year. The wild doesn't wait long. If the dogs go feral, they'll be worse than the dead. Faster, smarter, and just as hungry. I added it to the list of threats. I keep coming back to the silence. It presses in like a weight. The world was never this quiet. Even here, miles from the city, there were always distant planes, trains, trucks rolling highways, neighbors yelling across yards. Now nothing. And it makes every sound sharper. My heartbeat, my breath, the tick of cooling metal when I set down the rifle. In this new world, silence isn't peace. It's a stage. It's the moment before something steps out of the dark. I'll close with this so I don't forget the feeling. The world is gone, not with fire or thunder, not with the noise of its own destruction, but with silence. A silence so deep it swallows you until you start to wonder if you're still alive at all. I slept maybe an hour last night, maybe less. I don't remember drifting off, just jolting awake with the rifle in my hands, finger tight on the trigger. My neck hurts from sleeping against the wall. My eyes burn like sand. The first thing I did this morning was write down a rule. Routine keeps you alive. When the mind cracks, the body follows. And the silence is working on me like a slow poison. So from now on, wake, patrol, inventory, write, then eat. Always in that order. No exceptions. Even if the world outside is dead, I have to treat it like it's watching. Inventory was steady. Food buckets untouched. Water sealed. Ammo cans lined like bricks. I should feel secure. I don't. Because the Baofeng hasn't spoken in 2 days. No police. No civilians. No survivors. When I turned it off, the static rang in my head like a phantom. I almost turned it back on just to hear something. Anything. Instead, I walked the perimeter. The west fence was still down from yesterday. I stacked brush against it, just enough to make a wall of thorns. It won't stop the dead, but it'll slow them. Maybe buy me seconds if I need them. Seconds are all that matter now. Around noon, the quiet broke. A sharp crack split the air, gunfire, far off, carried on the wet wind. Then another. A burst, automatic. Then silence again. I froze where I stood, eyes on the tree lean. And they moved. Not toward me. Not at first. But from the north, drifting shapes stumbled through the trees. 5, 6, then 10. Drawn to the sound. Always the sound. They weren't random. They were moving together, all angling toward the highway. Toward that gunfire. It hit me then, the infected aren't static. They migrate. Noise pulls them like gravity. And each shot fired is another beacon. I wrote that down, the dead don't wander. They converge. By mid-afternoon, the sky was low and gray, heavy as stone. I was out by the barn trying to bolt the doors tighter when it happened. 2 of them spotted me. I don't know how. I was quiet, careful. But their heads jerked in my direction, and then they were coming. Not running, not yet, stumbling fast, arms twitching, jaws clicking. I froze, hands slick on the hammer. Do I shoot? Do I swing? The answer came too slow. They were almost on me. I grabbed the machete and swung. First one went down with a wet crack, skull split. The second thrashed harder, clawed at my jacket, teeth snapping. I shoved it back, brought the blade down again and again until it stopped moving. Blood sprayed hot across my arms. Their nails tore my gloves. My chest heaved so loud I thought the whole world would hear. And maybe it did. I dragged their bodies behind the barn, dumped them in the brush. But by then it was too late. I could already see more shapes between the trees. Slow. Drifting. Drawn to the sound of the struggle. 1 became 3. 3 became 7. By the time I bolted the barn doors and sprinted for the house, there were 20 pressing at the fence line. Clawing. Groaning. Faces pale, jaws working. The first siege had begun. Inside, I sealed the doors, pulled every blackout curtain tight. Sat in the dark with the rifle in my lap, listening. The sound of them is worse than silence. Fingernails dragging wood. Teeth gnashing against glass. The dull thud of shoulders slamming against the siding. They don't shout. They don't curse. They just work at it. Relentless. One of them slammed the window so hard the boards rattled. Dust sifted down from the frame. I held my breath, finger pressing the trigger. But I didn't fire. Not yet. Couldn't. Every shot would draw more. So I sat. Rifle ready. Machete by my side. Heart pounding. Waiting for the boards to give. They kept at the walls. Every thud shook the boards. Every scrape of nails dragged through me like wire. The house groaned with their weight like it was alive and in pain. At first there were maybe 20. By dusk there were twice that. I watched their shadows shift across the curtains, tall and thin, swaying like reeds. I could hear their teeth clicking, a wet stutter that rose and fell like breathing. I thought I was ready. I wasn't. Around 7, one of them found a weak spot. The kitchen window, west side. A board gave way with a sharp crack. Cold air rushed in, and with it a pale hand clawing through the gap. I fired once. The shot tore the head clean back. The body slumped, wedged in the frame. Silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then the rest howled. That's the only word I have for it. Not human, not animal. Just hunger given sound. They pressed harder. The house shook with their weight. I moved room to room, patching where I could, shooting when I had no choice. Each shot echoed back at me louder than thunder. 3 in the hallway. 2 more at the back door. Another at the basement window. I stopped counting after 15. My ears rang. My shoulder bruised from the recoil. My throat burned with every ragged breath. And still they came. By midnight I was running low. Not on ammo, not yet, but on strength. My arms trembled every time I raised the rifle. My vision blurred. I barricaded the upstairs hall with a dresser and sat behind it, back against the wall, rifle across my knees. Below me, the dead scraped and moaned. Their weight bowed the doors inward. Their fists pounded a rhythm against the walls. They don't tire. They don't stop. That's what makes them worse than men. A man will give up. A man will cut his losses. The dead keep going until the wood rots or your nerve breaks. Around 3 in the morning, the sound changed. Not pounding anymore. Not clawing. Just quiet. I dared to look through the upstairs scope. They were drifting. Slowly. Pulling back one by one. Like a tide receding. By 4, only a handful still circled the yard. By dawn, they were gone. Just silence again. I stumbled down the stairs, legs jelly, hands shaking. My boots crunched glass from the broken window. The smell hit, blood, rot, cordite. The walls were streaked with dark handprints. Boards splintered. One door hung off its hinges. It looked less like a home and more like a crime scene. I patched what I could, reinforced where I couldn't. But I knew the truth. The house had been tested, and it had barely held. I woke stiff. Every joint ached, muscles screaming from yesterday's siege. My hands shook before I even touched the rifle. My stomach ached from hunger and adrenaline, and my throat felt raw. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't trust it. Not anymore. Morning light showed the damage clearly. Splintered boards along the west window. The kitchen door bowed inward where they'd pressed. Mud and streaks of dried blood tracked across the hallway. I walked slowly, scanning. Every nail, every plank, every streak of dirt told a story. They were here. They were testing me. And I survived. Barely. I took note of weak points. West window, replace board entirely. Back door, double layer. Basement bulkhead, reinforce again. Routine. Discipline. That's what keeps me alive. By midday, I decided to scavenge nearby. Supplies weren't infinite, and yesterday had proven that waiting too long is death. I stuck to back roads. Avoided intersections. Each abandoned house I passed told the same story. Looters had been here. Some were gone. Some weren't. One house had a body half covered by a tarp. Feral dogs had already begun gnawing. I didn't stay long. The scent would draw more. A few blocks away, I found an old shed. Nails, boards, a tarp folded neatly. Jackpot. Everything went into the truck carefully, silently. No unnecessary noise. Every scrap of metal or wood could be used. Every resource counts. Back at the house, I began constructing secondary barricades. Double boards across doors. Sandbags stacked in corners. Trip hazards of rocks and scrap metal along the edges of the yard. Observation points carved in corners of the porch and barn. I work slowly, carefully, measuring each placement in my mind. They won't stop the dead forever, but they might buy me minutes. Seconds mean life. Afternoons stretched long. I took inventory of food and water. Rationed them strictly. Calculated how long I could survive at current consumption rates. 2 weeks, maybe less if I have to fight again. I noted it in the journal. Numbers keep me sane. Logic keeps me alive. Evening brought its own test. I climbed to the upstairs window, binoculars sweeping the distant tree line. Small groups of infected moved lazily through the woods. 3 here. 5 there. Always drawn to something, always testing boundaries. I could see the aftermath of other human activity too. Cars overturned. Smoke from fires that had long gone cold. Evidence that survivors turn on each other quickly. Humans are as dangerous as the dead, sometimes more so. I also started thinking about longer-term survival. Water filtration. I have barrels, but I need purification tablets and cloth filters for debris. Firewood. Stockpile enough to last the winter. Traps. Simple snares for small game, maybe a warning system for approaching infected. I drew rough sketches in the journal, made mental notes. Each plan is a lifeline. Without planning, I'd be dead already. Night arrived slow, oppressive. I ate minimally, drank what I had rationed. Set the lamp low. Sat with rifle across my knees, listening to the wind rattle the trees, the distant creak of broken fences, the faint moan of something moving in the dark. Sleep came briefly, broken by nightmares and the rustling of the world outside. I wrote this before finally closing the journal. The siege tested the walls, but it tested me more. Each day I survive, the world grows emptier and I grow harder. Night settled heavy and gray, like a wet blanket thrown across the world. I paced the house, checking every lock, every board, every piece of metal I'd stacked against doors and windows. Routine, always routine. One misstep, one corner unchecked, and it's over. The wind rattled the siding. A tree branch scraped the roof. My heartbeat sounded deafening in the quiet. I climbed to the upstairs window again. From here I could see the barn, the yard, and the long gravel drive leading to the road. Movement flickered in the distant woods, small, shadowy. Could be deer, could be zombies, could be both. I didn't know anymore, and I didn't try to figure it out. I noted them anyway. Always note. Knowledge is survival. Sleep was broken. A few hours only. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined them at the fence. The first siege replaying. The pounding. The claws. The snapping teeth. When I woke, hands still shaking, I went down to the basement. Checked water barrels, inventoried food, counted ammo again. I couldn't shake the thought. Tomorrow, day 7, the first full week. A milestone. But a warning too. The first week is often the hardest. If you survive it, you might survive longer. If not, you become part of the noise, the draw, the swarm. I reinforced what I could one last time. Added extra boards to the west window. Sandbags along the kitchen wall where they had pressed hardest during the siege. Improvised alarm system. Tin cans tied with string around the property edges. Not foolproof, but it's something. Observation points ready. Every corner covered, every blind spot minimized. I'm running out of tools, but not yet out of resolve. I wrote for nearly an hour, lamp low, journal in my lap. Every sentence a tether to sanity. I reflected on the mental toll. Isolation gnaws at the edges. Every sound, imagined or real, spikes adrenaline. Every shadow could be death. Every plan may fail. And yet I survive. The night was quiet after that. Not peaceful. Just waiting. I climbed into the cot, rifle within reach, machete at my side, and tried to rest. Before sleep took me, I wrote this final note for the day. Day 6 ends with reinforced walls and frayed nerves. Tomorrow is the 7th day. If I survive it, I mark a week in the new world. And I pray the dead do not remember the sound of yesterday. Dawn came gray and slow, like it didn't have anywhere to hurry. I woke on the cot, muscles stiff, body screaming from 6 days of constant vigilance. The siege, the supply run, the reinforcements, it all weighs heavier than any rifle or machete. The house is quiet. Too quiet, but not empty. Not really. Not ever. I made the rounds. Windows checked. Boards holding. Doors secure. Sandbags still in place. The barn reinforced, intact. The perimeter quiet. Everything essential is here. Everything non-essential is gone. The first week. 7 days. That's a milestone. A marker. And I am still alive. But survival is a curse as much as a victory. Every day leaves scars I can't see. In my hands, in my shoulders, in my mind. I set myself to routine. Morning inventory. Food and water measured. Ammo counted. Gun cleaned. Machete sharpened. Routine is sanity. Routine is survival. Anything else is death waiting quietly. The Baofeng is dead again. Silence in the airwaves. No chatter, no static, no hope. I wrote in the journal. Week 1 and the world has already forgotten us. Or maybe it never knew we existed. Midday brought reflection. I went upstairs, journal in hand, reading through entries from days 1 to 6. Patterns emerge. Mistakes noted. Lessons learned. Noise draws the dead. Always. Humans are as deadly as the infected. Always. Resource management is life or death. Sleep is precious, but so is vigilance. Isolation corrodes the mind faster than hunger or wounds. I underlined several passages in pencil. Not for anyone else. just to remind myself that experience matters, that memory is survival. Afternoon, I worked on minor repairs. A loose board on the west window. Sandbags shifted slightly overnight. Debris near the driveway from the wind. Every repair is temporary. Every fix is fragile. That is the way of this world. I walked the perimeter with binoculars. Small groups of infected drifted through the woods. 3 here, 5 there. All distant. None probing yet. It is a moment of calm before the storm. I know storms come. They always do. I began thinking long-term. Water, barrels sufficient for now, but filtration must improve. Cloth filters, iodine, boiled reserves. Food, ration strictly. Canned goods, powdered milk, protein bars. Must last months if needed. Shelter, house strong but alternatives mapped. Nearby barns, hidden spots for contingencies. Traps, simple snares for small game, alarms along the perimeter for approaching threats. Escape routes, memorized every back road, every ditch, every creek crossing. Planning is oxygen now. Without it, you don't last past week 1. Evening approached with an ominous calm. I sat at the upstairs window, rifle in hand, watching tree lines, listening to the wind. Distant shapes moved lazily. No large horde yet. That might change tonight. Or tomorrow. I lit the kerosene lamp low, journal in my lap. Reread entries from the first week, seeing how I've changed. Hands steadier in combat. Decisions faster. Patience sharper. Cynicism deeper. 7 days. A victory. A curse. I prepared the final barricades for the night. Double boards, sandbags, improvised alarms. Observation points in place. Rifle loaded, machete within reach. I wrote this for posterity, or maybe just to tether my mind to reality. 7 days. I'm still alive. That is both a victory and a curse. The world is dead, but I endure. And enduring is its own battle. Night fell slow and heavy, pressing down on the house like a weight. I moved from room to room, checking every lock, every board, every sandbag. Every inch of this place had been tested once, during the first siege, and I knew it would be tested again. The wind rattled the siding. A branch scraped the roof. Somewhere in the woods, distant shapes shifted. I climbed to the upstairs window, rifle across my knees, and scanned the horizon. Small groups of infected drifted through the trees. No large clusters yet. Nothing pressing the fence. But I know better. They always come back. Always. I noted their movements in the journal, along with my observations. They linger near noise. They patrol previous feeding grounds. They converge in growing numbers when provoked. Knowledge is a weapon. Observation is survival. Sleep came fitfully. Each time I closed my eyes, I imagined yesterday's siege. The pounding, the claws, the snapping teeth. I kept the machete close. The rifle even closer. Every noise makes me tense. Every shadow stretches into a threat. Isolation is as deadly as the dead. I went through the journal again, reading entries from the past 6 days. Patterns, mistakes, lessons. I wrote notes to myself. Noise kills. Avoid it. Humans kill. Avoid them. Resources are finite. Guard them. Sleep lightly. Observe constantly. The writing keeps me tethered. Without it, I might start imagining more than I should. Before dawn, I set a symbolic checkpoint. I carved a small mark into a piece of scrap wood, 7 tally marks. 7 days survived. 7 days of the dead world. It is both a reminder and a promise. I endure. I adapt. I survive. I wrote my final note for the night. 7 days. 1 week. The siege tested walls, humans tested judgment, and the dead tested patience. I'm still here. That is a victory. That is a curse. Tomorrow begins week 2, and with it, a new set of trials. But tonight I mark survival. Silence settled again. Not comforting. Not safe. But familiar. I close the journal, lay back on the cot, machete at my side, rifle within reach, and let exhaustion claim what little rest it would allow. The first week is over, and I am still alive.